Freezing rain warning. Issued at Friday 11:55 a.m. May 23, 2025. Issued by Environment and Climate Change Canada. Description: ice buildup due to freezing rain today and tonight. What? Long duration freezing rain. 2 to 5 millimeters of ice accretion. When? Rain with a risk of freezing rain continues today. Freezing rain this evening. Additional information. Rain will continue today, however, with temperatures hovering just above the freezing mark, a risk of freezing rain is present. Precipitation is expected to transition to freezing rain this evening. While the freezing rain is expected to remain light, the long duration means that ice accretion of up to 5 millimeters is possible. Freezing rain is expected to change over to ice pellets or snow early Saturday morning. Surfaces such as walkways and parking lots will become icy, slippery and hazardous. Beware of electrical wires that could break under the weight of ice. ####. Please continue to monitor alerts and forecasts issued by Environment Canada. To report severe weather, send an email to onstorm@ec.gc.ca or post reports on X using #ONStorm. You might have heard about that recent viral Street View trend, the one where people learn they can go back in time and see Street View level imagery of their house or a loved one's home, and they are getting emotional spotting long-gone relatives, friends, or even trees when they try it for themselves. But did you know you can do something similar with Google Earth? Unlike Google Street View, which only goes back to 2007 and shows you a first-person, panoramic point of view, Google Earth offers 3D views of practically anywhere, and in some places, you can go back as far as the 1930s with historical imagery. I tried it myself, searching old childhood homes in New York. I could see them going all the way back to the 80s. Admittedly, the farther I went back, the imagery looked like flat, top-down aerial views, some of which were blurry. But zoom to the 1990s and the imagery got more dynamic and clearer. By the early 2000s, I could see satellite data in 3D. Historical imagery in Google Earth can show drastic changes to places over long periods of time. In London, Berlin, Warsaw, and Paris, you can see aerial imagery from the World War II era up to satellite views in modern times. It's fascinating to have a bird's-eye perspective and to be able to see how your house, neighborhood, or city has changed over several decades. How to go back in time with Google Earth. Are you a curious homeowner? Or maybe an amateur historian? Perhaps you love nostalgia, or you're just interested in the latest Google tools. Either way, here's all you need to know about Google Earth's historical imagery. What you need: you'll need an internet-connected device, such as a PC or a smartphone, to access Google Earth online. There is a desktop app for Google Earth, although this guide mostly provides step-by-step instructions for the website and mobile app. The experience is very similar across platforms. 1. Open Google Earth and search an address. Go to Google Earth on the web or launch the mobile app on your iPhone or Android phone. Before you can look up an address to see historical imagery of that place, make sure you're looking at satellite data. Web. Go to the Google Earth website in your browser. If you see a traditional map view, click the Layers panel, bottom left, expand map style, and select satellite. Once you're looking at satellite data, use the search bar at the top of Google Earth to enter an address you'd like to look up. Mobile. Open the Google Earth app on your phone, download it from the App Store or Google Play, if you haven't already. To look at satellite data, tap the three-line menu icon in the top left, choose map style, and switch to satellite. Then use the search bar at the top to enter an address. Locating an address works similarly across platforms. Just enter a broad place name, like a city, or a specific street address, 123 Main Street, anywhere, US, into the search bar. Once you hit enter, desktop, or tap search, mobile, Google Earth will jump straight to the location and give you a close-up view with the most recent imagery data available. That could be 2025, or it could be older. Also, you can ask Google Maps questions now, thanks to Gemini. You need to enable historical imagery in order to scroll a timeline and go back in time for locations. 2. Enable historical imagery. It's time to access the timeline slider. This is as simple as toggling on the historical imagery layer. Web. In the top toolbar, click the Earth icon, labeled Historical Imagery, or above the toolbar, you can go to view her historical imagery. A transparent blue timeline slider will appear in the upper left corner. Mobile, tap the layers icon, stacked squares, select historical imagery, then tap apply. A card with the timeline slider will show up at the bottom of your screen. When historical imagery is enabled, you can scroll through time by months and years for nearly any place on Earth. Just use the timeline slider that appears to select a point in time. Step 2. Enable historical imagery. Elise Better's Picaro is DNetNet. 3. Use the historical imagery timeline slider. On both desktop and mobile, drag the handle along the timeline slider to view different dates. In my experience, urban areas tend to have more historical imagery available, while rural areas, like where I grew up, often have large data gaps. Just search and start scrolling the timeline slider to see what's available. In Malone, New York, for instance, a small upstate town of fewer than 50,000 people, I saw timeline dots for every year in the present day, a few dots in the early 2000s, one in the 1990s, and a final one in 1985. In Syracuse, New York, however, a much larger, more popular city, dozens more dots appeared on the slider. Also, 6 Google Maps tricks to try for the navigation app's 20th birthday. In the timeline slider, large dots indicate yearly snapshots, and smaller dots mark monthly updates. Grayed out dots are for dates that were once available but aren't currently accessible at your zoom level. The labels below the dots show the approximate dates for image captures. On desktop, you might see the exact day, e.g., August 15, 1995. On mobile, tap a year in the timeline to see the capture's full date. Step 3. Use the historical imagery timeline slider. Elise Better's Picaro is DNetNet. Newsletters. ZDNet Tech Today. ZDNet's Tech Today newsletter is a daily briefing of the newest, most talked about stories, 5 days a week. Subscribe. See all. 4. Toggle between 2D and 3D. Google Earth sometimes disables 3D buildings and terrain when you enable historical imagery to improve performance, according to Google. So, if your view looks flat, that's why. When 3D is available and you're viewing it, Google Earth will show a 2D button so you can switch to that mode instead. I've noticed 3D is often disabled for older imagery, like anything from before the 1990s. The oldest 3D view I could access was 1995, I could see some places in 1985 in 2D, though. Also, Google Maps yanks over 10,000 fake business listings, how to spot the scam. To toggle between 2D and 3D historical imagery, just look for the circular button in Google Earth that's labeled 2D or 3D. It should be toward the bottom of your screen on the web or in the app. 5. Explore historical imagery. Historical imagery uses satellite and aerial imagery to let you explore places going back as far as 80 years. It seems like older historical imagery is lower resolution aerial views, while the newer captures are sharper, more immersive satellite imagery. It's fun to try different locations and scroll back in the timeline to see how far you can go. I've tested past home addresses, major cities, famous landmarks, lots of places. Also, how you can use Google Maps to track wildfires and air quality. You might see that image stitching and terrain elevation changes in Google Earth produce warping as you look around the map. In those cases, try changing your angle or zoom level to reduce the distortion. Step 5. Explore historical imagery. Elise Better's Picaro is DNetNet. And that's it. Enjoy going back in time with Google Earth. Let me know in the comments the oldest historical imagery you found and where, and if you have time, check out how to go back in time with Street View. It's just as fun to try. The Halifax Regional Municipality is advising residents of the following Halifax Transit Service changes taking effect on the weekend. Route 10C, this route will have a Saturday schedule adjustment. Routing changes. Route 330 will undergo a routing change to travel along Dunbrack Street. No stops will be impacted. Route 84 will undergo a routing change to travel along Reconciliation Way. No stops will be impacted. Bay changes. Regional Express routes 320, 330, and 370 will service Scotia Square Bay 4 instead of the stop at Duke Street before Albemarle Street. Routes 2, 7B, 9AB, 29, 93, 135, 136, 137, 138, 158, 159, 161, 165, 168AB, 182, 183, 185, and 186 will service different bays at Scotia Square. Routes 5, 58, 63, and 158 will service different bays at Portland Hills Terminal. Reinstated trips, a total of 9 previously cancelled trips will be reinstated across routes 65, 68, 84, 85, 165, 168A, 168B, 182 and 185. Visit our website for up-to-date changes to routes and schedules, including maps. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, has confirmed plans to use facial biometrics at its land borders, and they will affect Canadians. In an email, CBP Public Affairs Officer Jessica Turner said, "We have been testing camera technology at a few locations on the northern and southern borders as part of the entry-exit mission. That means travelers can soon expect to have their photo taken when exiting the US at land borders with Canada and Mexico." Turner explained that facial biometric records are used to track overstays. The goal for expanding to outbound vehicle lanes is to be able to biometrically confirm departure from the US, she said. For frequent travelers to the US, biometrics aren't new. As early as 2002, CBP was mandated to use biometric technology to issue visas and screen foreign nationals entering the country. In 2004, the US started collecting biometric data from non-US citizens exiting the country at airports. These security measures are in place at airports with international arrivals and upon exit from 58 airports. CBP also uses facial biometrics for travelers entering the US via cruises and pedestrian lanes. Currently, Canadians returning home from the US by vehicle are only required to provide biographic information. On May 9, Wired reported that CBP plans to log every person leaving the country by vehicle by taking photos at border crossings. However, Turner refuted this, stating, "We will not log every person. The entry-exit mandate applies to the majority of foreign travelers." She added, "Travelers who do not wish to participate in the facial biometric process simply notify a CBP officer, request a manual document check, and are processed consistent with existing requirements for entry to the United States." According to the CBP website, biographic information for air travelers includes date of birth, passport number, document number, country of citizenship, etc. However, CBP didn't specify if it requires additional documents for a manual check at its land borders. Although they've been testing the technology, Turner said there's no specific timeline for when CBP plans to implement facial biometrics for travelers leaving by land. "We have not yet provided a plan for how CBP will capture facial biometrics at exit in vehicle lanes, but will continue to explore solutions as part of the long-standing biometric entry-exit program," she said. 3 easels, one with a large photo of Lily Sullivan on the left, middle with a large search map, right a large photo of Jack Sullivan. RCMP van in back. Lily and Jack Sullivan were reported missing from their home in Nova Scotia's Pictou County on May 2. Jorge Suddy. Social sharing. 2 weeks after 2 young siblings vanished without a trace in rural Nova Scotia, experts are pointing to anomalies in what they say is an unprecedented case that deviates from a typical missing children investigation. Lily Sullivan, 6, and brother Jack Sullivan, 4, have been missing since May 2. That's when police received a 911 call reporting that they had wandered away from their home in Lansdowne Station, a sparsely populated area about 140 kilometers northeast of Halifax. Nova Scotia RCMP then launched a search that included ground search and rescue officials, dog teams, drones and helicopters. But after 6 days of scouring the heavily wooded areas surrounding the home, there was no sign of the children and the search was called off. Police have said they do not believe the children were abducted, but have not ruled out that the case is suspicious. A wild mobile home is shown with 3 cars parked in the driveway. It is set in a wooded area. The 2 children were reported missing from this home on Gairloch Road in Lansdowne Station, about 25 kilometers southwest of New Glasgow. Josh Hoffman, CBC. Michelle Genus, an associate professor in the Criminal Justice Department at University of Louisiana at Lafayette, said the facts of the case and apparent lack of evidence makes it an anomaly. It doesn't meet a lot of the normal criteria for what we would see for these types of cases, said Genus, whose research areas include missing persons and juvenile justice. Usually there is evidence in some way that would suggest something nefarious has happened. It mirrors those adult missing persons cases where we call it quiet disappearances. There's no evidence. Search for kids missing from Pictou County home resumes this weekend. A few details stand out to Genus as unusual, including the children's absence from school that week. The children's stepfather, Daniel Martel, told CBC News the children were not in school on Thursday or Friday, the morning of the disappearance, due to illness. They also were not at school on Wednesday due to a professional development day. It could just be incredibly bad timing that they had 48 hours unaccounted for before the disappearance. But that's just one of the things that stands out in my head, she said. An expert poses for a photo. Michelle Genus is an associate professor in the Criminal Justice Department at University of Louisiana at Lafayette. Michelle Genus. Police will not say if anyone else had contact or saw the children in the days leading up to the day they went missing. Genus said she believes police should be considering whether a person played a part. In a stereotypical kidnapping by a stranger, the offender doesn't usually target a specific child or children, they create a plan and whoever is in the environment at the time falls victim, said Genus. It doesn't seem like that would be the case here because what we know is they were in their backyard in a rural community, so it's not like they were walking to school or to the gas station or something where it can be an easy snatch situation, she said. So, if it was a stereotypical stranger kidnapping, it would have had to have been somebody who said, "I want those kids in particular." Nova Scotia RCMP said on Tuesday they were following up on more than 180 tips from members of the public and exploring all avenues in the investigation. Wednesday's test of Estonia's public warning system can be seen as either a failure or a valuable learning experience, but one thing's for sure, everyone had something to say about it, notes journalism researcher Marju Himmer in Friday's daily comment on Vic Radio. Where were you when the emergency alert went off? In a town where there are no sirens. Did you hear it? Yes, I heard it, my friends sent me a video. Was it loud enough? Then why didn't I hear it in my office at work? But I did hear it, I have a corner office with big windows. Why did I get the SMS so late? What time did you get your text? Over the past few days, these questions have sparked more discussion among Estonians than even Eurovision or the shortage of tickets to the main concert of this summer's song festival. The testing of the public warning system during an Estonian Defence Forces (EDF) exercise on Wednesday showed that people have high interest and expectations for these emergency alerts. In typically Estonian fashion, the expectation was for flawless execution, without realizing that a test is meant precisely to try out the system and pinpoint any weaknesses. Yes, the sirens only got 3/4 of the job done, and they didn't sound in the promised places at the right time or at the right volume. Yes, the text messages were late, and comparing what time you received them became a kind of national pastime. And yes, now the Rescue Board and the Ministry of the Interior can start fixing the issues. That's exactly the point of the test. Yet, one thing about the test worked quite well, arguably even flawlessly: communication. The fact that the day emergency alerts would be tested was announced a month in advance, with non-stop radio ads and continuous media coverage, is likely what set expectations so high in the first place. The Rescue Board's communication during the test also deserves mention, especially once issues started emerging with the morning SMS alerts. To be honest, I read about the issues with the text messages in Delphi even before the actual SMS reached my phone. Their frank admission and explanation of the faults was impressive. Understandably, living under the shadow of war for the last 3 years has heightened expectations for civil defense. The results of the alert test did nothing to ease that fear. That said, it's worth looking forward to more tests like this. In Sweden, by the way, depending on the region, such tests happen monthly, and people are used to it. That's something Estonia should consider as well. Hopefully, we won't have to wait until the next Hedgehog military exercise to run another test. For that, the authority to manage and test the public warning system would need to be given to the Rescue Board instead of the EDF, as is the case now. Given how much interest, excitement and even the almost ritualistic sense of unity this test sparked among us, I'd request that we conduct these emergency alert tests more often as part of improving broad-based civil defense. One suspect is in custody after a man was shot and killed in Uptown St. John, N.B., Friday morning. The St. John police force responded to a report of shots fired on Carmarthen Street at King Street East just before 10:30 a.m. Officers found the body of a 20-year-old man inside a vehicle at the scene. His name has not been released. The St. John police force vehicles are pictured at the intersection of Carmarthen Street and King Street on May 13, 2025. CTV Atlantic, Avery McRae. The St. John police force vehicles are pictured at the intersection of Carmarthen Street and King Street on McRae. Police said 3 suspects were seen leaving the area on foot, headed down Carmarthen Street towards Union Street. An emergency alert was issued around 12:40 p.m., saying police were searching for individuals carrying a firearm on King Street East. Police issued an update at 2:45 p.m., saying one man was in custody and the emergency alert has been lifted. Investigators are still looking for the other 2 suspects. One suspect is described as a white male wearing dark clothing. The second is described as a black male dressed in a light blue hoodie and dark pants. The third is a white male with brown hair who might be wearing a dark jacket. It isn't clear which of the 3 suspects is in custody. Police say they believe the shooting was an isolated incident. Members of the St. John police force are seen in the city's uptown as they investigate a shooting on May 13, 2025. Shelter in place. People in Uptown St. John were asked to lock their doors and shelter in place Tuesday as police search for the suspects and gather evidence. Schools in the area were locked down as a precaution and several businesses were closed. Investigators are asking anyone who witnessed the shooting or who has video footage from the area at the time of the shooting to contact the St. John police force at 1-506-648-3333 or anonymously through Crime Stoppers at 1-800-222-8477. Severe thunderstorm watch. Issued at Friday 3:36 p.m. May 23, 2025. Issued by Environment and Climate Change Canada. Description: conditions will be favorable for the development of severe thunderstorms capable of producing strong wind gusts, large hail and heavy rain this afternoon. ###. Heavy rain can cause flash flooding and significant reductions to visibility. Strong wind gusts can damage trees, buildings and overturn vehicles. Large hail can cause significant damage and injury. Severe thunderstorm watches are issued when conditions are favorable for the development of thunderstorms capable of producing damaging hail, wind or rain. Please continue to monitor alerts and forecasts issued by Environment Canada. To report severe weather, send an email to qstorm@ec.gc.ca or post reports on X using #QCStorm. Recommended action: when thunder roars, go indoors. Lightning kills and injures Canadians every year.